climbing is not just all about standing on the summit, although that's a great part. Instead, it's really about the experience of getting there. And so Mount Rainier is such a big mountain. There's tons of ways to get to the top. This particular route is a very, very popular route. I bet there were 50 people climbing that day. There were probably the two of us that summited and maybe about 12 more. The culture there is that you drop your backpack, you drop your ropes, go across the crater to go to the summit. So we didn't have our backpacks. So the storm came in and we tried to work our way across the crater, but we were in a whiteout. And the storm, it's like the storm was designed for us. Because I'd been there before, I knew what it looked like. I couldn't see it at the time, but I knew what it looked like. And so that was the first thing, was getting back to our backpacks. Because that had our food, it had water, it had our shovels, it had all the things that we needed to survive. But we got our packs, got some water, and then attempted to head down the mountain. We made it a couple hundred yards, maybe, before we just realized there was no way there was no way we could pick our way down. It was scary, but it was never overwhelming. In a sense of mine and Mark's reaction to these situations are, well, let's start working, right? Maybe it's just a 2-hour storm, a 3-hour storm. It was a 28-hour storm. Ideally what you do is you actually dig a cave that you can crawl into. They're cramped, they're not incredibly comfortable, but they keep you warm. And you're underneath the snow. And I've built a couple of those before. I've stayed in them before. The Colorado snowpack is very different than a glacial snowpack. We dug and dug and dug and essentially amounted to, we got a trench out of it. And this is the piece of gear that saved our life. Is a really lightweight nylon bivy sack. It's big enough just to fit over your sleeping bag, and I have tossed that in my backpack when I've gone alpine climbing for the last 8 years. And got a knife and we cut it up, and I turned it into a tarp that became the top of our trench. It's like a tent. We were able to lay down shoulder to shoulder. So there's ice on this side, there's Mark on this side, and ice on his side. Physically, just cold. So I was shivering, just uncontrollably shivering. And the air in our trench wasn't good, because we weren't getting good circulation. I ended up jamming an avalanche probe through the top of it to get some air in. In the snow cave, you're wet. You're just wet because it's above freezing in the snow cave. It was above freezing where we were, but everything's melting. That night when I made a conservative decision to press the 911 button, which that signal then went, if it went out at all, I was hoping it went out, that alerted the Park Service and alerted rescue people. The storm didn't let up until about noon the next day. I didn't know what was going on outside, but then we did have the intention of going down. From our perspective, it's all right. We've stayed up here at night. We've survived. Great. Let's check that box off, and let's make a dash. We could look south. We saw Mount Adams. We looked east and we saw the big storm that was on us going away. And we looked west and we saw another storm coming. And then sure enough, this other storm came in and sat on us for the next 12 hours. So it was the morning, it was really cold. And of course we're wet. And when you climb out of being wet into freezing temperatures, we turn into ice, just head to toe ice. We descended about 1,000 vertical feet. So at about 13,500 feet, and we saw the helicopter come up. And so we're heading down, right? Getting off this mountain. And I don't jokingly say this, but there's this phrase that is, in climbing, that making it to the top is optional, but getting down is mandatory. So that's what we were doing. We're going down. Got Mark down, and we're on a snow bridge above a crevasse. And we made the decision there to take the helicopter ride. And so they came in and executed just a perfect landing, and we hopped in the helicopter and they flew us off. It was a pretty fantastic thing. It was never been in a helicopter before. So we get down, exciting ride down. You know, we're still delusional. Like, we're still, okay, we can make our flights, we can do this, we can do this. Yeah, I need to call, you know, we need to call our families. And the Rangers that picked us up, they just laughed at us. You know, they're like, you don't understand. Like, we've been planning this rescue for the last 2 days. We tried to send a Chinook up on Saturday that they couldn't get on. I mean, like, there was so much happening, and for us it was just, we got to get down. You know, we landed, we went over to the ambulance. Like, we walked over to it, waving to, you know, just saying hi to people, meeting new people, still adrenaline's pumping. It was after we got on the ambulance and they were checking us out when we started to crash, and we realized that we were in pretty bad shape. Someone had to take my boots off of me because I couldn't move my fingers. Someone had to help me get my gloves off, like taking off my jacket, taking off my shirt, and then I saw my feet, and I saw how purple my feet were, you know, the whole foot almost. That was the first moment when I realized that I have frostbite. Recovery's going well. It was really frustrating to begin with. I couldn't walk for a couple weeks. Since then, the tissue is healed, and since the tissue healed and there was no risk for infection, things have just continued to get much better. I'm still numb. My fingertips are numb. My toes are numb. I've got some pain in my feet. The experience kept us alive. But that's the first time I've ever been in that type of survival situation, and I hope it's the last.